Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to do the revision. Chapter 8 Cell. Cell is the structural and functional unit of all the organisms. So, what do you mean by structural and functional? All the organisms are made up of cells. Each and every part in our body is made up of cells. And the cells perform the functions, many chemical reactions which are taking place in the cell, and as a result the energy will be produced. So in order to maintain the life, this continuous supply of energy is required. So all these energy production, it is taking place in the cell, hence the maintenance of the life is taking place with the help of cells. So that is why we are saying the cell is the structural and functional unit of life. Then it is the first cell was identified by the scientist Robert Hooke. We'll move on to the slide. Robert Hooke in 1665, and he observed it under the plant material that is called as cork, the outer region of the plant, mainly woody trees, it is cork, and he took the slice of cork and he observed it under the magnifying device. He can find out many box-like compartments, box-like cells, and he named it as cell. Then later, when more and more magnifying lenses, and especially Antony von Leeuwenhoek, he observed the cell, a living cell. Corpuscle, it was a dead cell, and living cell was observed by Antony von Leeuwenhoek, and that time he made a primitive form of microscope. And later, many other varieties of or very advanced forms of microscope when they developed, the scientists when they developed, within the cell itself there is a darkened body that was identified by another scientist, that is Robert Brown. So the cell was observed by the dead cell. That is, first the cell is observed by Robert Hooke, then the living cell was observed by Antony von Leeuwenhoek, and then Robert Brown found out that within the cell itself there is a darkened body that he named it as nucleus. Then when we move on to the size of the cell, the size will vary. So some of the organisms, the entire organism itself is made up of single cell, and in our case and all means in our body there are multiple or millions of cells, are there, trillions of cells. So if the entire organism is made up of single cell, then they are called as unicellular. Typical example is amoeba. And if they are made up of many cells, then it is called as multicellular. So amoeba, then paramecium, euglena, all these, their body is made up of only single cell. Other organisms where their body consists of many different types of cells, and then that cells itself unite together to form tissues, and tissues again group together to form organ systems, like that way, and in that case we will call it as multicellular organism. So the size of the cell will vary, and majority of the cells are microscopic. We cannot see with our naked eye, but there are certain cells, exceptional cases. Typical example, when we say the hen, egg of hen. So here in this one I have seen. What you are seeing, what we can see is a typical cell with the naked eye is egg. So egg is also a single cell. It is also having cell membrane, cytoplasm, nucleus, etc. So some of the cells are microscopic, some of the cells can be seen with the naked eye. Then we'll move on to the next slide. There, the figure I have given, sometimes they will give some examples for unicellular organisms. So amoeba, paramecium. Amoeba, there is no particular shape. It is also made up of a single cell, but there is no particular shape. Whereas the other one, paramecium, it is also a free living organism, and it is having the shape of a slipper. Hence it is called a slipper animalcule, which is also a unicellular organism. Then some amoeba, it is irregular in shape. Some of them, they will have a definite shape. Then in amoeba itself, why they are shapeless? Because they have many finger-like projections here and there, and that finger-like projections in the form of feet-like structure. Hence, it is called as pseudopodia. Pseudo means false, podia means feet. So, the main function of that pseudopodia is to help to catch the prey and at the same time to help in locomotion. So, amoeba, why it is irregular? Because of the presence of irregular pod-like or feet-like structures, and it helps in catching or capturing of food as well as for locomotion. Then the next, this one, when we are saying the typical examples, that is, there are many cells in our body, and the main typical example we can say blood cells. So in the blood itself, there are different types of cells: WBC, RBC, and platelets. So typical RBC is another example of a single cell which can change its shapes. Same like an amoeba, the WBCs also can change the shape, and they can come out of the blood, and they can walk around or they can move around within the tissue fluids. And they will, wherever there is any virus or any antigen, means this WBC can engulf or they can eat that one, and in that way they can protect from various diseases. So this WBC is also just like amoeba only, it can wander here and there. So but it is found within the blood. Then here I am depicting different types of cells based on different shapes and different size, etc. So here the first figure represents the RBC, red blood corpuscles, and RBC is a special type of cells without nucleus. Okay, there is no nucleus in RBC because its function is to carry oxygen and carbon dioxide. So to carry maximum amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide, the nucleus itself is absent. The next one, it is a typical involuntary muscles or spindle shaped muscles, and which helps in movement. So when we are taking the food, swallowing of the food, etc., that is automatically it will be, so it is not working under the will, but it can, it alternate involuntarily it will work. And the shape, you can notice the shape, it is spindle shape. Spindle shape means needle shape. Then the longest cell, the next one, C, that is longest cell, it is neuron. That means our nervous system, the messages or the informations will pass from one brain to different parts of the body with the help of a special type of cell. And with that cell only the brain and the spinal cord and all it is made up of, or nervous system is made up of. That cell is called as neuron. So it is the longest cell. So here three types of cells it is given. That is, one is RBC without nucleus, and it carry food and not food, the respiratory gases. Then the muscles, contraction, smooth muscles. Then the nerves, neuron, which helps in transmitting the messages. Now we'll move on to the typical example of plant cell and animal cell. So there is few differences between them, but this is just an outline of how the plant cell. The first one, it is plant cell. The second one is animal cell. We will move more. We'll move. The details will be given later. Now the next one, it is size. How can we measure the size of the cell? Since it is cannot be seen, most of the cells are microscopic. Mainly the unit for measuring the size of the cell is micrometer, or we can say micron. So majority of the cells can be observed except like that cells. The rest all cells will be can be observed only with the help of microscope. Hence the unit also is given as micron or micrometer. 1 micrometer is 1 millionth of a meter. That means 1 meter can be divided by 10 lakh, not 10 lakh, 1 lakh. Okay, so 10 lakh, that is 10 lakh. So if 1 meter is divided into 10 lakh, 1 by 10 lakh will be the size of the or micrometer. So a typical cell will have maximum of within the range of 10 microns. So normally bacteria and all less than 5 microns, and it can be so. But hen, egg and all, it is up to 3 or 4 centimeter, 4 or 5 centimeter the length. So some of the cells are very small. It is less than 5 microns. Some of the cells are large. Okay, so the size of the cell, the shape of the cell, etc. will vary accordingly. So most of the cells we need the help of microscope to observe. And the picture in your textbook, from the textbook only I have copied. So different shapes of cells and different types of cells. One is RBC, the other one is WBC, then skin epithelial layers, then neuron, then plant cells. Plant cell, it is the first one, it is a trachea, that means xylem for transporting water and minerals. Then other one mesophyll cells which contain chlorophyll, so which helps in photosynthesis. Then we'll move on to the next one. So all these are the different types of cells. So exams also they will ask, they will give the figure and you will have to answer it. Then here size of the cell is related to its function. For example, nerve cell, both in elephant and rat are long and branched. They perform the same function. So whether the cell is present in small animal or in large animal, the function and all will be the same. So nerve cell in the rat as well as nerve cell in the muscle, nerve cell in the elephant and all, the function is same. So conduction of messages. So when we observe any view, that message will send to the brain through the eyes and then it will pass on to the different parts of the body. So the neuron as such, when we will say, it will transport messages from brain to the different parts and from different parts to the brain. So irrespective of whether it is rat or elephant or human beings and on neuron, the main function will be transport. So size will vary and function of the cell also will vary, and the location also will vary. But the cell as such, when you are saying, it is the structural and functional unit of life. Then we will move on to the next higher level. That is, many cells will group together to form or to perform a particular function. Then we will call it as tissues. So in our body there are different types of tissues, that is muscle tissue, nervous tissue, cardiac tissue, then covering tissue. So there are different types of cells, skeletal tissue, cardiac muscle, epithelial tissue. So different types of tissue. So tissue means it's a group of similar cells or group of cells which perform a particular function. So cardiac tissue, when we are saying, they are part of the heart muscle and helps in pumping. And nervous tissue means they will transport the messages. And connective tissue means they will connect different parts of the body. Muscle tissue is a connective tissue. Skeleton, bones are another connective tissue which will help in connecting different parts of the body. Epithelial tissue means covering tissue. Our skin and all is covering tissue. So cell itself grouped together, and if they perform a similar function, they are taking part in performing a similar function, then they are called as tissues. Now we will move on to the cell itself, with what it is made up of. What are the different components of the cell? So when you are saying a cell, you can compare it as a room. So when in your room, your bedroom itself, you can say within that room itself, the boundary. Okay, there is 4 walls are there. The same way, the cell also, there is a boundary. So the boundary of the cell, we can call it as the outer layers. And in plant cell means there is one rigid cell wall is there, which is made up of cellulose. Plant cell, okay, because they are exposed to harsh climatic conditions and they cannot move from one place to another. So it has to be, the components within the cell has to be protected very well. So there is a cellulose cell wall. Whereas animals, they can move from one place to another, they can protect themselves from the predators and all. So there is only one outer layer. So that outer layer is called as cell membrane. Whereas plants, they have cell wall, and that will act as the boundary, and within the inner to that cell wall there is a cell membrane. So one extra protective layer is there in plants, that is called as cell wall, and which is the outermost covering, and it is made up of cellulose. And in plant cell as well as animal cell, there is a cell membrane which is acting as the boundary. It provides shape of the cells to the plants and animals. It gives shape and rigidity to the cells. and at the same time it helps in allowing certain substances to into the cell as well as certain substance out of the cell also. Sometimes certain substances to be taken in. Say for example, if the muscle within the cell, the energy to be produced means the oxygen should enter into the cell, and as a result of energy production, carbon dioxide will be given out as waste. So this carbon dioxide have to go out. So certain substances, there should be entry and there should be exit also. So some cell membrane will allow the substances, certain substances to enter and certain substances to go out. So it is permeable. It is permeable according to the substances. Some substances they will allow, some substances they won't allow. If any pathogen, virus and all means, cells will not allow the entry. They cannot enter. So the cell membrane will protect it. Sometimes it will allow the entry and exit of substances, and it will give shape, etc. So these are the main functions of cell membrane. Then when we go more detail, the cell membrane will act as the boundary, I said. Boundary of what? Because it encloses, within the cell, it encloses a jelly-like substance that is called as cytoplasm. And within the cytoplasm, near the centermost region, there is another round body that is called as nucleus. It is spherical in shape, and so the cytoplasm and the nucleus is well protected by the cell membrane. And the cell membrane, another name, it is called as plasma membrane also. So it separates the cells from one another, and also the cell from the surrounding media. The cell membrane is porous, that only I said. It will allow the certain substances to enter, certain substances will not be allowed to enter, and it allows the movement of substances and materials both inward and outward. Then we'll move on to the next one, that is the functions of cell. What I said, all these things, the same points only, even then. The cell membrane covered by another thick covering called as cell wall in plants, and the central dense round body in the center is called as the nucleus, which is very important, which will control all the vital functions or vital processes that is taking place within the cell. And the nucleus is surrounded by, or the cell itself encloses a jelly-like matrix, and that is called as cytoplasm. And cytoplasm contain many organelles, components, subcellular components, that is called as organelles. So organ is different and organelle is different. Organ means group of tissue which perform a particular function is called as organ. And organelle means the components within the cell is called as organelle. So typical example for organelle is nucleus is an organelle, mitochondria is another organelle, ribosome, endoplasmic reticulum, vacuoles, all these are the organelles which is performing certain functions. So energy production or powerhouse of the cell, we can call it as mitochondria, because within the mitochondria only energy is produced. Then the protein is synthesized within another cell organelle that is called as ribosome. So ribosome is the factory of proteins. Then there are certain suicidal bags that is called as lysosomes. They will kill the if the cell is attacked by the virus, means the whole cell can be destroyed by the lysosomes. The whole cell can kill itself. So suicidal bags. So there are many components within the cell that is called as organelle. Sometimes questions they will ask, what is the difference between organelle and organ? So when we move on to the organ means a group of tissues which perform a particular function. So heart is an organ. Heart itself is again consists of muscular tissue, covering tissue, then valvular tissue, etc. Then kidney is another organ, not organelle, organ. And there also there is an epithelial tissue, then there is muscular tissue, there is a covering tissue, blood vascular systems are there, blood vessels are there. So organ, kidney, liver, then heart, eye, ear. So all these are different types of organs which are found in an organism. So organelle is found within the cell and organ is found within an organism. So organelle also perform a particular function, organ also perform a particular function. The organelle is within the cell, and many cells group together to form tissues, many tissues group together to form organ, and they perform a particular function. So you should have a clear idea about organ and organelle. Now we'll move on to the cell wall. So cell wall, which I mentioned again, which I am just pointing out again, it is the addition. In addition to the cell membrane, in plant cell there is an extra outer layer which is very thick, and it is made up of cellulose. And it is mainly the why the plants they are having cell wall means the plants cannot move from one place to another. Always they are exposed to harsh climatic conditions. So they will be protected against the variations in temperature, high wind speed, atmospheric moisture, etc. Then we will move on to the types of cells. So types of cells. That means if the cell is having a definite nucleus, then that type of cell is called as eukaryotic cell. A true nucleus. Eukaryote. Karyo means nucleus. U means true. If the cell is having a definite nucleus inside the cytoplasm, then it is called as eukaryotic cell. That means when we observe the cell through the microscope, within that a dark, in the cytoplasm, a darkened body is seen, means that is eukaryotic cell. And some very small organisms such as bacteria, etc., there is no nucleus, definite nucleus, just a darkened region alone. There is no round outer boundary and all. Just a darkened region, that is called as prokaryotic. Pro means primitive nucleus, so no definite nucleus. So when we divide this tabular column itself, differentiates the different types of cells. So prokaryotic cell means they are small in size, maybe less than 5 micron, not millimeter, it is micron only. Then eukaryotic cell means they are larger cells, it is greater than 10 micron. Okay, 10 micron, it is not millimeter, it is micron only. Then it is prokaryotic cells always unicellular, they have only single cell, whereas eukaryotic cells can be unicellular or it can be even multicellular. Then from the main differences, there is no definite nucleus, here there is definite nucleus will be there. Then there is no membrane bound organelles in prokaryotes such as mitochondria, ribosomes, etc. etc. Membrane bound organelles will be absent. Whereas in eukaryotic cells, membrane bound organelles are present. Nucleus is present, chloroplast is present, mitochondria is present. Okay, so such cells are eukaryotic. Then mostly in prokaryotic cells, the DNA, within the nucleus there are thread-like structures. So the DNA here it is circular and without basic proteins. Whereas in eukaryotes there is DNA is present and they are rod-like, they are arranged in the form of a thread-like structure, and it is linear. Linear means it is like a rod-shaped arrangement, and it is associated with the basic proteins. So it is little more advanced points only, but even then I have included that point. Then in prokaryotic cells there is small round structures that is called as ribosomes, which is acting as a protein factory. That means proteins are synthesized in that one, and they are of very small and primitive type. We can say it has 70S type, whereas in eukaryotes it is 80S types of ribosomes. So these are the main important functions. First 3 points are very important. Okay. Now we will move on to typical eukaryotic cell, and here the example is human. Any human cell can be taken as, here it is the diagram of human cheek cell. Sometimes for diagram they will ask the question, draw and label the parts of a typical eukaryotic cell or cheek cell. So here in the figure we can see the cheek cell. There is a, as usual, we said the typical cell, they are surrounded by animal cell. It is surrounded by the cell membrane, which encloses a jelly-like matrix, that is cytoplasm. Inside the cytoplasm, the typical nucleus. Nucleus inside there is a darkened region, that is nucleolus, and nucleolus consists of thread-like structures, that is called as chromatin. Later it will become chromosomes. So this is a typical eukaryotic cell. Next slide I am showing the different types of cells and its size. So a typical human cell or any cell, the size will range from 20 to 10 to 20 microns. That is a normal average size of cell. But the smallest cell, when we are saying, we can say even smaller than that, there is a prokaryotic cell, that is bacterial cell, that is the size is 1 to 2 micron. And the smallest cell, we can say PPLO, pleuropneumonia like organisms, even small, or mycoplasma, we will say, that is even smaller than bacteria. Their size is only 0.1 micron. And there is another organism, we cannot say organism, it is a pathogen only, that is disease causing organism, virus. And viruses cannot be considered as a typical cell, but even then the size is very small, and it consists of not all the components of the cell, it consists of only a protein outer covering and a DNA or an RNA. So it cannot be considered as a living or non-living. If it is living inside the cell, and it is non-living outside the cell. But even then, the size wise, when you are saying virus consists of the size of the virus is even smaller, it is 0.02 to 0.2 micron. So this is just a comparative study of how the cells will appear. Then the next figure, it is a typical bacterial cell, a prokaryotic cell. So a example for a prokaryote, if they are asking, means you have to write bacteria. Example for a eukaryote means any human cell you can write it. Any human or any cell you can write. So here typical bacterial cell means they do not have a definite nucleus. Instead of that, the DNA will be circular and it is located within the center. There is no nucleus, nuclear membrane, etc. will be absent. And apart from that, membrane bound organelles also will be absent, such as mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, etc. will be absent. Then here the bacteria, since if it is bacteria is moving type, means they will have the flagella. The flagella, that is a long thread-like structure. Here you can see that is flagella. So bacteria is considered to be some of the smallest or small varieties of cells, and it is made up of only single cell. It is coming under the category of prokaryotic cell, unicellular. Okay, the entire organism is made up of only single cell. Now we'll move on to one by one the components. Inside the cell is bound by a cell membrane. Already we said it encloses the cytoplasmic, the jelly-like matrix, that is called as protoplasm, and it is protoplasm consists of both cytoplasm and nucleus. Cytoplasm means the jelly-like content, and it encloses, or within the center there is round or spherical structure, darkened area, that is called as nucleus. And here and there the various components will be scattered, organelles will be scattered, mitochondria, ribosomes, vacuoles, Golgi bodies, etc. will be surrounding. Then when we are concentrating more on the nucleus is most important component in the cell, because it consists of genes, which is the 3 units: what you are, your characteristics, your body shape, your color, your hair color, your eye, the shape of the iris color, etc. All the characters are imprinted, or it will be coded within the thread-like structures that is seen within the nucleus, that is called as genes. So it is all the characteristics and all the functions in the cell, in the organism, it is regulated by the nucleus. The most important part inside the cell, which one they are asking, means nucleus is the most important one. And nucleus also is bound by a double membrane covering, that is called as nuclear membrane. Then it encloses a jelly-like matrix, that is nucleoplasm. So here 2 words we have learned: cytoplasm and nucleoplasm. Cytoplasm means jelly-like substance within the cell. It consists of nucleus. Okay. Then the nucleoplasm means it is the jelly-like substance within the nucleus, and scattered within the nucleoplasm only the thread-like structures, that is called as chromosomes, chromatin, and later it will become more condensed and then rod shape in structure. Then it is called as chromosomes, which is made up of DNA. DNA consists of genes. Genes are the hereditary units. All these points are very important. Specifically, you have to intimate all these points. Then I am going to read that one. It is the most important component of the living cell. It is generally spherical and located in the center of the nucleus. And there are different shades of nucleus in different organelles, okay, different cells. Some cells, they do not have any nucleus at all. RBC, no nucleus, absence of nucleus. Paramecium, presence of two nucleus. One is kidney shaped, other one is round. So generally it is spherical, but there can be different shapes and size and different numbers also. Some cells there is multicellular, multinucleated condition. Some of them, they will have multinucleus. That means many nucleus will be there. But a typical cell, there will be a single nucleus. And nucleus is nuclear membrane is porous. What do you mean by porous? It will allow the entry and exit of substance. So many substances will have to enter into the nucleoplasm, and many substances, after the process, it has to go out of the nucleus. So the membrane is porous. Here and there pores will be there, through that the entry and exit of substances will be regulated. Now we'll move on to nucleolus. Nucleolus means within the nucleus itself there is a darkened region that is called as nucleolus. And nucleolus also performs certain functions which is important for the cell, and RNA, synthesis of RNA and all, mainly controlled by the nucleolus. Then nucleus consists of just nucleoplasm. The jelly-like substance within the nucleus is called as nucleoplasm. It consists of thread-like structures, that is chromosomes. Chromosomes carry genes, and genes are the hereditary units which help in transfer of characters from parents to the offspring. Then chromosomes can be that rod-like shape. Here the figure I have represent the shape of the chromosomes. So they will be appear, the thread-like structure will convert into rod-shaped structure. That time we'll call it as chromosomes. So chromosomes will be visible when that cell is undergoing when is undergoing the cell division, mitotic division and all. That time only chromosome structure will be visible. Then gene. Gene means it is a hereditary unit. So chromosomes are made up of genes, and genes will carry the characteristics. So if your hair color is black or brown or golden color, and all, means that is inherited from the parents in the form of genes. So each and every characteristics is controlled by a unit. That unit is called as gene. So in your body there are approximately 30,000. In each and every cell there are approximately 30,000 genes. Each gene will regulate each particular characteristics. And 50% of the genes you are inheriting from your father, 50% you are inheriting from your mother. These genes will regulate all the characteristics. Okay. So what you are, it is the sum total of genes that is present in your body. Then protoplasm. Protoplasm, the term is protoplasm and cytoplasm, there is a small difference. Protoplasm means the component within the cell, that is together we can call it as protoplasm. Protoplasm consists of cytoplasm and nucleus. Okay, cytoplasm and nucleus. Jelly-like matrix in the protoplasm is called as cytoplasm, and the nucleus is the spherical structure. So cytoplasm along with the nucleus collectively we can call it as protoplasm, or in other sense it is the living component in the cell is called as protoplasm. Then we'll move on to vacuole. Vacuoles are the fluid filled bags which is present inside the cell. It will store, it is storage in function, sometimes secretory in function, etc. So in plant cells, when you are observing, we can differentiate the plant cell and animal cell. One of the main features is based on the size of the plastids. So size of the vacuoles. So the vacuoles will be larger in size and few in number in plant cell, whereas in animal cell there are many vacuoles, but size wise they are small. So small sized many vacuoles will be in the animal cell, larger sized very few vacuoles in the animal cell. in the plant cells. So it is storage in function. Some of them in amoeba and all means they will store, they will capture the food, and the food will be enclosed within a vacuole, and there the digestion takes place. And then, so depending upon the size and the function, the vacuoles also perform different functions. Some of them are secretory, it will help in secretion. Some of them are digestive, some of them are storage. So it varies accordingly. So mainly they are secretory and absorptive, and at the same time they are storage in function. In plant cell, along with the apart from vacuoles, there is another organelle that is called as chloroplast. So chloroplast means it is the rod shaped structure, or we can say oval shaped structure, which consists of green coloring pigment that is called as chlorophyll. It is essential. So within the chloroplast, it is we can call it as it is a kitchen of plant. So inside that only the food will be synthesized. Food will be synthesized in the form of starch. How they are synthesizing? By the process photosynthesis. So with the help of chloroplast, they can trap the sunlight and they can fix carbon dioxide, and it can be converted into sugar. So from the plants, only plants only can synthesize the food. And from the plants, when we eat the plants, we will get the food in different forms, and that will be utilized. So the fundamental source of food is plants only. So that is by the process photosynthesis, plants can synthesize, and that is too with the help of chloroplast. And apart from this, there are different types of plastids. That is, chloroplast is green in color and photosynthetic in function, means there is another type that is called as chromoplast. Chromo means colored. So the flowers, different colors of flowers you can see around, and different types of colored fruits you can see. Dragon fruit red, apple red, tomato red, then mango green, banana mango green as well as yellow, banana yellow, carrot orange. So different colored pigments are there. It is enclosed within the plastids, and that plastids are called as chromoplast, which give color to the fruits as well as to the vegetables. Then apart from that, there are another type, colorless plastids are there, that is called as leucoplast, L-E-U-C-O, leucoplast. They are colorless, mainly they are storage in function. So potato, when you are taking potato, when you are slicing the potato, you can see a off-white color structure, and it is made up of leucoplast. So they are storage, starch and all will be stored in that one. Tubers, tapioca, kolli, they are also white in color. It is colorless. So there are three types of plastids: chloroplast, chromoplast, and leucoplast. Chloroplast is mainly performing the photosynthesis with the help of green coloring pigment that is called as chlorophyll, and they synthesize food. And coloring is given by chromoplast, and storage is performed by leucoplast. Then this is the comparative study of animal cell and plant cell. So plant cell, there is an extra layer that is called as cellulose cell wall, and inner to that, inner to the cell wall, there is a cell membrane that is present in plant cell as well as in animal cell. It encloses jelly-like substance that is called as cytoplasm, and in the centermost region there is a nucleus, and vacuoles can be plant cell means a large central vacuole will be there. Animal cell means many vacuoles, but size wise they are small. And all the organelles are present. Typical organelles are ribosomes, mitochondria, plastids, vacuoles, then Golgi bodies, etc. So sometimes they ask for diagram. You have to draw the diagram of typical plant cell and animal cell. So plant cell means two things compulsorily it must be there: cell wall, cellulose cell wall, and a large vacuole must be there. That's all. It is common to all. Now we'll move on to the comparative study table. It is given that is cell membrane, it is present in both. Cell wall is present in plant cell alone, absent in animal cell. Nucleus is present in both. Nuclear membrane also present in both. Cytoplasm is present in both. Then plastids are present only in plants, and it is absent in animals. And vacuoles means it will vary. That is the single large vacuole in the plant cell, whereas an animal cell, many vacuoles but small in size. Then the last figure which I am representing the different types of organelles. The first one, it is ribosome, which is called as the factory, protein factory. That means the protein is synthesized within the ribosomes. There are two subunits, small subunit and large subunit, which is arranged one above the other. And within that only the protein is synthesized. Hence it is called as protein factory. Then down the picture it is mitochondria. Mitochondria, it is sausage shaped structure and it is called as the powerhouse of the cell. Why it is called as powerhouse of the cell means the energy is produced, ATP. Energy is produced within the mitochondria. So without mitochondria we cannot survive because there only the ATP is produced. So without energy we cannot survive. So it is powerhouse of the cell. Then on the right side it is endoplasmic reticulum. They are the transporter. That means the food and nutrients and all other components, oxygen, carbon dioxide, protein, fat, carbohydrates, etc. will be transported from nucleus to the cytoplasm, from cytoplasm to the nucleus or from the cell membrane. It is just a channels, okay, transporting channels to and fro. It will help in transporting the components to and fro. Then the last one, that is Golgi bodies, which is arranged in the form of a pile of coins. Golgi bodies is the packaging. That means proteins will be combined with lipid, so lipoprotein. And glucose will be combined with the lipid, so glycolipids. Like that it will be packaging. So in the factory and all you can see, as soon as the jam or paste and all means any product, soon after making it, it will be covered, okay. It will be wrapped by the packaging. So same way here also protein and lipid together will be wrapped and labeled, etc. The same way here also Golgi bodies are the packaging units. So there the food, other components will be mixed together and will be packed and will be sent to the vacuoles, and the vacuoles will transport it through endoplasmic reticulum and it will be sent to from one region to another region, or sometimes from one cell to another cell in the form of vacuoles or through the endoplasmic reticulum. So all these are the summary of different types of compounds. So to summarize once again, a typical cell, it is a structural and functional unit and it is performing different functions. The cells can be very small, which cannot be seen with our naked eye. It is microscopic cell, but there are certain cells which can be seen with the naked eye. That is typical hen egg of a hen. That is can be seen very, and main three components are there. There is the cell membrane, there is cytoplasm, then a nucleus. And cell organelles are scattered throughout that one. Cytoplasm, cell membrane boundary. In plant cell, there is one more extra covering that is called as cell wall, which is made up of cellulose. Then cell membrane, then which is acting as the boundary protection, gives shape and allows entry and exit. Then cytoplasm, jelly-like substance, and it will consist of different cell organelles also, and it is the living component. And inside the cytoplasm there is a darkened region, the spherical body, that is called as nucleus. Nucleus is bound by nuclear membrane, nucleoplasm, nucleolus, and thread-like structures, that is called as chromosomes. Chromosomes carry genes. Genes are the hereditary units. It regulates the expression. Different characters are expressed with the help of genes, and genes are inherited from our parents. And apart from that, there are different types of cell components also: ribosomes, mitochondria, Golgi body, vacuoles, endoplasmic reticulum, all they perform. So hence the cell as such, we can call it as the structural and functional unit of cell. So with this we are concluding, and revise properly and appear for the exam with much confidence, and best wishes. Thank you all.